Satnam, welcome to the One Flow podcast. I am Jai Gopal, and this is the illustrious and beautiful Jamila Starwater Tazewell. We are here today to try something new. We're going to call this the kitchen table because we spend most of our time here. We're eaters and foodies, and so we spend time here. When people come over to our house, they gravitate to this place.
We can never go to the dining or the living room or the dining room.
We don't.
It's always here.
It could be because we have kind of a sucky table in there, but that's
no.
okay. No, it's a good table. Jamila cut the legs off it when we first got together too. So I was like,
way
that's when I was
now.
I was a lot less vocal back then. I wouldn't just react to stuff.
What do you mean?
No, I mean
you're getting off topic.
I'm getting off topic, but. We got this antique. I pulled in this antique table, and she's like, "I'm going to cut the legs off and move it Japanese style." We had just gotten together, so I was like, "Okay, that sounds really great. That's all right, yeah."
Oh my god, it's
but
way
I love
better
it now. But I love it now.
Okay, well, our next episode is going to be at the dining table, so you can see, and we'll have a vote.
We're not going to film at the dining table. Anyway, I love the dining table now. Sitting low with pillows, because Jamila makes the pillows. We are getting off topic. This is the kitchen table. This is the One Flow podcast. And so we decided to try something new today. Jamila and I have been trying to do something together for a while, but we've had a kind of a crazy life.
Well, we do everything together, so.
Well, we do everything together, so yes. Well, yeah, a little bit, But we were out in New Mexico for a long time because my mom was ill and she finally passed out of the body. I would say thank God because she was suffering, and so were we. But anyway, we tried to do that out there a little bit, and it just was too much other stuff going on. So here we are, and it just sort of naturally evolved. That's how it's supposed to be in life, Not supposed to try to push square pegs in round holes.
It's like a river. We want to be in the flow.
Yeah. So what we're doing today is we're just going to have a conversation. Jamila has some questions I have not seen. Mysterious questions.
We have a little theme for today.
But I feel comfortable about it because she's not the kind of person that was like put you on the spot or anything or try to hurt you. She's like, her heart's like as big as the sky. This is why I locked that down.
I locked it down.
She locked it down. It's true.
Shall we just start?
What are you trying to say?
No.
Yeah, let's start.
I just like to get to the heart of the matter.
There you go.
Okay, so I'd like to know what your favorite protection mantra is and why.
Ooh, interesting. Well, right off the top of the head, I like the Ad Gure Name. Ad Gure Name, Ad Gure Name, Sat Gure Name, Siddhi Guru Deva Name. And the way you do it is when you chant it, there's 4 lines. You chant Ad Gure Name on your right side, and then Jugad Gure Name behind you. And then Sat Guru Name to the left, and Siddhi Guru Deva Name to the right, to the front, and it literally puts 4 pillars of kind of light and the light of your soul in those 4 directions, and in that way it protects you. And I've seen it work in real time. I always kind of disclaim this because I'm from the Piscean era, and where I came from, the Bronx and Queens, and then Manhattan and for high school, and then West Point. Like when I say these things like, oh, you chant a mantra and it protects you, there's this little thing in there like, what the like there's all the guys I grew up with and everything like so that's my problem. Fact is, the reason I look like this and the reason we're here is because it works. The way it works is that you chant that mantra and it creates a neuron pattern, right? Neuron pattern affects the glands in the brain. The glands in the brain secrete hormones, send commands to the rest of the glandular system, and you literally take the form. So that mantra that you chant informs you, like it really creates the form. And at this point, there's no real like decrying it because you got YouTube, and it's like what's it called? There's a name for it, the sound where they put the sand.
Cymatics.
Cymatics, yeah. So the cymatics, you can look up cymatics on YouTube, you pull up a video, and this guy pours a little sand on a plate, and that plate's plugged into a sound board. Speaker. And the speaker creates the vibrations, and all of a sudden a crystal forms, like a little crystalline pattern, yeah. Mandala, yeah, that kind of stuff. And then you got Masaru Emoto, who did that with water, and your body is 60-70% water.
90% plus.
90%?
Oh, yeah.
The jury's out. The differing opinions on this.
I'm right.
The point is, body is mostly water. And so if you look at Masaru Emoto's work, you see that when you speak, remember the word is God. The word is in the beginning is the word is with God. The word is God. That's because when you speak, you're basically harnessing all those creative forces and informing your creative self to create that thing that you're speaking. So what you say is what you speak is what you create. What you think is what you create. So that's that. So Adguriname, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That's really foundational. And would you advise somebody to do that like in the morning before they leave their house and stuff like that? Or you could just do it anytime, right?
You can do it anytime you feel like, creepy. You walk down the street, guy looks like he might jump you. You start chanting Adguriname. It works. I've seen a guy walk across the street, as soon as you start chanting it.
And do you need to be able to visualize the columns of light around you?
You don't need to be able to visualize anything. You don't even have to make it complicated. This stuff, because you think about, you're dealing with conscious intelligence. What your soul is connected to infinite consciousness. And so as soon as you intend protection and you say those words, there's a gazillion times more energy from that thing for you just thinking about it coming through to you. So you don't have to understand it. You don't have to know it. Just like if you were to jump into a pool in the backyard with all your clothes on, you're gonna get wet, whether you believe in gravity or the pool or the water. And you don't have to understand how the water is wet, how it wets you, how it works, why the water's in the pool, why the pool is blue. You don't need to know any of that stuff. You jump in the water, you're gonna get wet. You chant Adguriname, you're going to be protected. So you just have to learn it and chant it.
We should link it below or something, wherever.
Yeah, in the show notes, we'll put that in there. I've been wanting to say that, the show notes for a long time.
It's foundational. This mantra is something that I would recommend everyone to have memorized and use regularly, because it's just a tool that's very, very helpful. So I like that answer. Okay, so this one is and
let me just add one more thing. So for people who are new to Kundalini Yoga, or maybe you find, listening to the podcast, you haven't done Kundalini Yoga again yet. When we generally chant in our crew, we chant this mantra after there's one mantra you chant to tune in. It's called Om Namo Guru Dev Namo. That you chant that 3 times for any Kundalini class, and you'll always see that. But then oftentimes, and most of the people I know all chant Adguriname, Adguriname, Satguriname, Siddhiguriname 3 times after that, because when you're dealing with infinity,
atomic energy,
infinite characters. There's
and there's a polarity in this dimension. So we like to add extra light, extra protection in when we're dealing with really high frequency energy, because we don't want it to flip on us down to the lower register.
Yeah, something people don't understand when they get into because everybody's in duality. You go I'm going to go to Kundalini Yoga, and so I'm dealing with my spirit. It's just going to be all light and puppies and cookies and then people do have that idea, right? I'm going to go to meditate. I'm going to go get world peace and you get certain of those things, but mostly it's some hard work but there's also you open up the channels and. Out there on the ethers, there's good, there's bad, there's light, there's dark. So we chant these protective mantras. This is good for people to know. We chant these protective mantras in class because we're opening up a channel of subtlety. And if you're devotional and you have that kind of subtlety, and your intention is to kind of open a good protective space, then good beings are going to come and kind of aid the process. But at the same time, if you go in and you kind of don't follow the rules of the Kundalini Yoga, and let's say you play some different music like rock and roll, which is fantastic outside of the class, but if you play something else in the class, you don't know what you're opening to pull in. You don't know what the frequency of those sounds is attracting. So aside from that, just in general, for Kundalini Yoga teachers, people going in the class, you want to chant the protective mantra, because it adds a layer of insurance that you're going to have a better quality experience with a more light and airy kind of beings showing up.
Yeah, and the point of this is that, once you know the mantra, though, you can use it in any time in your life or your day, and it's super, super helpful. And you don't need to consider yourself even a Kundalini Yogi to be have it be a tool that you can use. Mantra is really there for anyone that wants that, columns of light protection around them. So yeah, and then I'll just say one more thing about to your point about like meditation. People that don't practice meditation have an idea of it, that it's just bliss and like sitting on a beach, like bamboo,
flutes and
yeah,
and water dripping really, on bamboo and flute music.
But meditation, in my experience, and certainly not just me, it's like taking out the trash, so that can be smelly, but then once you're done, you don't have any trash left in your kitchen, until the next day. So that's why it's also like brushing your teeth. It's something you do every day, because it's basic energetic hygiene, and most of us weren't taught. It's not part of the culture that we do that, but we're moving into a new time with super high energy time, so things manifest quicker, and so we want to live in the positive stream. We want to have enjoyable experiences, so we use the practice of our meditation to keep us in a higher vibration, so that we're manifesting the good stuff quicker, and we can just deal with the trash, because this is what we're here to deal with, all the levels of reality, not just the high and bright stuff. We want to face the dark stuff and shine the light on that too.
I'm glad you made that point. That this is such a miscommunication out there, to say like misinformation. There's this idea, even especially now that yoga and meditation has become popular. You see billboards. There was a billboard for like some beer. I don't know which one. I won't mention the brand, and we go get in trouble. But there was some beer ad, and somebody was sitting there in like easy pose with Gyan Mudra, and like. Anyway, I'm sure beer can chill you out and everything, but I have vast experience with this. Those two images don't belong together. Trust me on that one. Trust me. But it's a very good point that meditation is completely misunderstood in the West for most people. And it's a hindrance to new practitioners. What she said is very important. Meditation is taking out the garbage. Most people do not understand this, and it's so important. When you sit down to meditate, your subconscious mind starts to release. And what does it release? It releases all the bullshit that you did that you weren't supposed to do, all the bad experiences, this, that, all the crap that keeps you stuck starts to come up. And that's the nature of meditation, which is why we do meditation. People think we do meditation to be all blissed out and zen and all this stuff, and that's fine. It's just just like everything else in our world, it's been turned upside down, and the truth has not been told about it. But if you go in to meditate and you don't feel comfortable, you're doing a good job. As long as you're doing the meditation as is prescribed, and you feel like crappy thoughts and this and that, you're doing the work. And over time, if you do that, you clean the house every day. You create the habit of cleaning the house. Your house becomes a pretty nice place to live after a while. Like she said, Jamila said, you gotta brush your teeth every day. It's a maintenance thing. And that's why we're always telling people develop a practice, because there's millions of lifetimes worth of shit back there.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. Okay, you ready for the next question?
I'm ready.
What would you advise someone to do who has to clear a possession?
A possession, yeah. Like something like a demonic thing.
Yeah, they feel it inside themselves, or maybe they have to be around somebody that they think is carrying a super dark energy.
Well, first of all, I would say don't think about possession. Chances are, that saying is like, if you think you're crazy, if you actually think you're crazy, chances are you're not crazy. There are dark forces, and people have dark forces working within them. You pick up stuff along the way. You open yourself to things as you go through life and stuff like that. Lord knows the places that I used to hang out, that stuff got into this, decided to come along for a ride. But doing Kundalini Yoga, if you just do the Kundalini Yoga and meditation and you do it regularly, you'll get rid of those. They don't like to stick around for the light, you know. And it's a simple metaphor as, you know, when you turn on the light, the shadow goes away, which is why we don't believe it. I don't personally take a shine to that shadow work, you know. Why, if I turn on a light and there's a shadow in the corner, why would I focus on the shadow? I can just shift the light, the shadow will go away. Wherever I put the light, the shadow's going to go away. So why would I don't need to focus on it. This is my personal opinion. I know a lot of people, that's their methodology, and I don't want to get in the way of anybody. That's what I'm just saying that's my philosophy. I'm not into it. But in terms of, like, if you feel dark forces within you, you want to breathe first of all. You want to do powerful breath. And if you don't know this technology, if you don't know any, just literally take deep breaths. Go someplace where there's really good fresh air. Like, go to the beach, take your shoes off, walk on the sand and breathe that ocean air. Or if you're not by the ocean, go to a forest or someplace, be safe, you know, don't get lost in the forest. But go someplace where there's fresh air. Get out in nature. Number one, get out in nature, because that prana, that's consciousness. There's a charge on that. That's why they call it prana and not air, right? There's air and then there's prana within that rides on the air, and that's ionic. It's ether. It's the element of ether, and that's where the consciousness travels. And so you breathe, and I say this when we tune in. This has become my habit to say these things when we tune in. But I came across a teaching from Yogi Bhajan where he says, "It's the soul that breathes in you." And that gave me pause, and so I started to explore that, and I researched it a little bit, and it made so much sense to me, because the soul is the consciousness that decides to take it to life, that decides to create the body, to take incarnation. It's the soul that's doing that. And then everything else is after, right? The body is formed, the mind is formed, you know, all of the other aspects, the qualities of the mind, and it gets, you know, it's a machine that's built. But the first thing that happens is the soul creates the prana, which is the life force that drives everything else. And that's what leaves. So when the prana stops, when there's no more life force, it's the soul that goes with the subtle body and goes away until you come back again. And so that's why if you have any kind of problems, the first place you should go is to the breath. The first place you should go is to the breath, and then try to get the best quality breath you can. So like I said, in a fresh air place, you know, go out, get out of your normal routine and go someplace where there's fresh air. That's number one. If you're a practitioner and you have some tools like breath of fire or some of the different pranayams, definitely by all means employ those. And just a regular practice of Kundalini Yoga, meditation, and sound current will get rid of the darkness. You know, keep in mind, like, actually a long time ago, can I keep going on?
Yeah.
A long time ago, when I first got into this practice, I was doing the white tantric yoga, and I was partnered up with this lady, and she was very, very psychic, and she had like psychic powers, but she also had like both light and dark going on in there, and I could see it like while we were meditating. I was like, there's some characters in there and stuff. So she was asking, what did you see? And I told her, I said, and I did not have a filter back then. And I told her, I go, there's this guy, and he didn't look good, and he was like from lifetimes controlling your shit, and he was like, and she knew it because she was psychic. She already knew these characters, right? And she was connected to some stuff, you know. And I said, well, and this and that. And she looked at me and she goes, and I go, you gotta get rid of those guys. And she goes, they're all me. That's interesting, and it took me a few years to get it, but now I get it. So it's all the one flow, and it's all conscious creating. So even the dark stuff is that consciousness creating, and so that's the biggest thing that people can't accept, because they want light to be light and dark to be dark, and God creates the light and the devil creates the dark. That's a duality. There's only one force of creation, and then the people have called it God and so on. But the fact is, it's all sort of one. So if you've picked up some stuff along the way, and it's dark, you know, it's yours for the moment, and you can also change anything you want because you're infinitely creative. So you can get rid of that stuff too. But there are entities, separate entities. That's what Jamila is talking about. That there are demons and there are angels, but there's dark characters that can come and get you and stuff like that. But we don't like to focus on that because people have great imaginations and they start thinking. Most people don't have that going on, so you don't want to get too afraid. But people have alter egos and that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't think about it too much as possession, because you can kind of create too much. Like I said, if you think you're crazy, you're not crazy. If you have a possession, chances are you're not going to know it like that. Other people will. But the basic idea is to just surround yourself with good quality, good quality people, environments, and that sort of thing, and to practice, breathe, and mantra. So mantra number one. So if you really feel that there's some darkness that you're working with, and then mantra is number one supreme way to get rid of that. And that is because the entire universe is energy. That energy vibrates, it moves, and that vibration creates a sound. It's very sophisticated. There's sounds for everything. Everything's got a sound. This glass has a sound. I'm making a sound. Even just sitting here vibrating, I'm making a sound when I'm not speaking, which is rare. But so sound current is what makes up this whole thing that we're experiencing. It's all sound. And again, in the word is God, right? They're talking about a totality of sound there. So what we use in Kundalini Yoga, these mantras are called shabads. And we covered this in class the other day. The shabads, and the word shabad is a specific word for a specific type of sound, and it's generally arranged kind of like a mandala or a poem or a piece of art, in a sense, like the masters, but it's an energetic piece of art in the form of sound. And that sound cuts lower vibrational frequency thought forms and pretty much anything that doesn't serve you. So it'll cut. So there's a shabad called Jap Sahib, that within that there's 4 lines at the end of it, CHATTAR, CHAKKAR, VARTEE, which many people know, and it's those 4 lines, when they're recited, they will get rid of fear, any kind of thought that vibrates with that identification of what would be called fear will be cut and just literally just kind of melted like a hot knife through butter. It'll just be like whoop. And I've had direct experience with that, like that it works. And it works on the subconscious level. So if you're having problems with darkness in particular, CHATTAR, CHAKKAR, VARTEE, track that down. We're in the internet age. You can just look at CHATTAR, CHAKKAR. Even if you got some letters wrong,
put it in the show notes.
It's going to come up. Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes. But CHATTAR, CHAKKAR, VARTEE is going to cut dark, fear, those sorts of things. So that's a really good one to work with. And just in general, and if you're not familiar with these mantras, if maybe you're coming here for the first time and so on, you can get familiar with them over time, but you don't need to walk away going, oh, that's too complicated for me. You can find this stuff. I highly recommend the music and mantras recited by White Sun. If you go to whitesunmusic.com, those guys really know about the science of Nod, sound current, and Shabad, and they make their compilations in such a way that they're very potent tools. So like, you go to Home Depot and you can buy like Home Depot brand hatchet, and it's like an okay one, it's got a rubber handle, but then there might be one like Jamila Starwater brand that is like real high quality. It's got a wood handle, and it's her family has made them for centuries, and they know how to make an axe, and so you get that's kind of like what happens with White Sun is they don't, so that axe is going to work better, it's going to cut more, and it's going to be a better tool that you're going to have and maybe pass on to your children. Whereas the one you bought, the other one, yeah, it's okay, but you use it for a year and the heads will fly off and that kind of thing. But so that's White Sun. White Sun is the quality, and they understand the sound current, and they use it and make very, very potent mantras, but there's such beautiful compilations that you don't know. You're not like, oh, this is like medicine. It's, it's like food is it's delicious food the way they make it, and so it sounds beautiful. It's pleasant to listen to, but at the same time, it's given you like the most amazing cleansing of your psyche. So yeah, and then last thing I would say for that, if you feel possessed by a dark force, then get help. Especially get help from, someone that you trust, especially if the darkness has got you in such a place where you don't feel like living anymore or you're suicidal. It just the first thing, like if everything I said before, breathing, doing some yoga, working with sound current, if you're like, fuck that, I can't even, no, freaking no, and I just can't do it anymore. If that's where you're at, just get help immediately. And you want to get help if there's too much of that darkness, because it wouldn't. Trust me, I've had very, very intimate dances with death lately. I know people who have committed suicide, and it is just not a great solution. Even though you don't think that in the moment, you don't think that you think it's a good solution, and you can't see any other way. But it's absolutely not. I'm telling you, it's not. The grief and the impact it creates on your family and everybody around you is not something that you want to leave them with, and it's also just not necessary. The problem with a depression to the point where you can't see any other way out is that it's your energy that's compressed because of thoughts in the mind and a pressurized subconscious. And there is a way out of that. There's absolutely a way out of that. Many, many, many people have made their way out of that. Okay? And so, and now we're in a place where like help is just a click away, a phone call away. And you can get there. But the depression to such a degree is literally, it's like your toilet being clogged up or your pipes bursting. It's just a situation where there's too much pressure. You have to relieve that pressure. And everything that I mentioned, breath, Kundalini Yoga, mantra will all do that. It will all do that, and it will do it so fast you'll be like, I can't believe that I ever was there.
If you can get yourself to do it.
Yeah, but you got to get yourself to do it.
But
and if
reach
not,
out for sure.
Sometimes you need to be carried, and there's people that will carry you there. And there's tons of people that want to help. And I'll tell you, I'll be 100% honest with you. I have had suicidal thoughts even for years. Well, I would just think about it all day. And that sounds messed up, you think, but it's even messed up for me to try to say it. But I'll tell you, my stepdad committed suicide in 2016, and through this practice, I've created such an energy that I can't even access those thoughts. I have the memory of it, and I'm telling you about it. But when I go back to think about it, I can't even really imagine that it was a reality or that it was true. So there's a way to get out of that place and into another place. And that's what my teacher always says repeatedly. Kundalini Yoga is a transportation device. And I've said that this body is like a spaceship, and Kundalini Yoga is the manual on how to use it, the fuel on how to use it, and all of that. So very good question, because there's a lot of people experiencing like darkness, and they think it's them. It's just a part of nature and the way things are. You don't have to stay there. You can get out of there, and that's why we've all had that. That's why we do Kundalini Yoga. That's why we practice Kundalini Yoga, and that's why we teach Kundalini Yoga, because it works for that very thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I just like to add one more thing. There's a perspective you can access where becoming aware of the darkness inside you and all the heavy, experiences that go along with that, can actually turn into be the biggest blessing once you can get to the other side. And something to keep in mind is that it's not just you. You're carrying your entire family line energy, like in your DNA. It's vibrating through you, and it may be that in this lifetime you agreed to have these dark energies be expressing through you, and you are, if you're listening to this podcast or watching us, you're connected in some way to the energy of Kundalini Yoga, and that energy of Kundalini has tools, absolutely has tools that can transform the dark energy. And by no means is that the only way, but we talk about it a lot because it's the way that we have had experience and success with, so that's why we like to share it. But just offering that as a perspective, that it may seem like a curse now, but when you get to the other side, you will see the blessing, and the blessing of being able to free your family line of this this energy, the dark energy. You can absolutely make it so the buck stops here.
Yeah, some really great
it's
points.
done with you. And then the beings that come after you, you're the one that cleared it out. So go.
Everything
go
has an
for it.
opposite in this world, and so if you're feeling cursed at the moment, then there's a blessing there. We say this all the time. Every cloud has a silver lining. So there's if you're on the dark side of the street, there's the sunshine on the other side of the street. You're just gonna walk over the other side of the street. But what you said reminded me though of that story Tage told. Remember, it's from a book called 72 Stories of God, Goods, God, Good and Goods. 72, and it's available online. I think it's available some places. 72 Stories of God, Good, and Goods. And there's this little parables in there. And Tage reminded me of this one story, probably because that's what I needed. I had some dark characters I need to get rid of, probably. But it worked, And so the story is that there was this house, and in the house there was these demons. And the guy in the house said, he went to the holy man. He said, look, I got this demon in my house. Every morning the demon comes in, he flies around and he knocks things around and causes mischief, and he's just flying around and flying around and flying around. And the guy says, you know what, the next time the demon comes, just address the demon directly and say, oh my God, you're just so beautiful. You are created by God. What a light you are. Thank you for coming to visit me. You're just the greatest example of a God being, of a holy being. You're so holy and you're so amazing, and you're just a bright light in my life. Thank you for coming. And the demon just left because he didn't want to be there. So it's the same thing with food and diet. We went through for years, and we were like, oh, we're so messed up, we're gonna have to fast, and we're gonna do that, and then we can't eat this, and we can't eat that, no. Because we have parasites, or we got this, I got candida, we went through that whole thing. And what you gotta do is eat food that's right for you, eat food that's healthy, and create a food environment that those things don't want to live in. Now we eat like pastries and bread. I was gluten intolerant. Now I'm a baker. I drink coffee. I eat because I'm blessing the food. It does what I want it to do, and if it doesn't work for me, I'll shift to something else.
Well, we jumped on the bread timeline. It's a good. It's a happier place.
We shifted timelines out of that whole sacrificial lamb shit into like pizza, just pizza and sourdough, man.
There's also different times for different things, Yeah. So it's good to recognize that.
Yeah.
All right, you ready for one more
question?
What else you got?
One more question?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, we gotta go to the beach.
Yeah.
We just enjoy our lives. That's another way to stay bright and light. Is just do stuff you enjoy.
So, this is kind of my favorite question right now. What is the difference between karma and dharma?
Oh, she set me up there. Years ago, I found when I would just love to go into the teachings. I still do, but I used to go hunting things by watching Yogi Bhajan videos, trying to find really cool gems. And some reason, the year 1983, all those videos from 1983, it was just like he taught some he dropped some real heavy stuff in a good way. But there was one, and it totally blew my mind. He's talking about karma and dharma, and he says, he's asking the class, what is karma, what is dharma, and nobody can answer. Everybody's giving these elaborate answers. He's finally like, God, this is the United States of America. You're the dumbest people I ever met in my life. You can't answer this question. You're all educated, PhDs. You're just dumb. So he dusted him off a little bit, and then he finally gave the answer, and he goes, karma and dharma are the same thing, except in karma there's a pilot, and that pilot is you, but in dharma there is no pilot. And I might not even still get that because it's so difficult. I probably don't get it, but I didn't get it then, but I do get it now. And what I understand is that it's all one flow, which hence the name of the podcast. There's one flow, one creative flow happening. And then, but in karma is your ego, your little you is trying to control, is just doing stuff and just trying to drive the train. Now there's a very subtle esoteric place that people who practice get to, and that's called dharma, where you're just on the beam of your own soul's light. And it's very difficult to explain to somebody who's not, who never has been or never experienced it, because they're just not going. Which is why I didn't understand this teaching so deeply in the beginning. But when you are in alignment, you're in the flow of your own soul, there's a force. And that force is doing things for you. You'll see those wisdom teachings where there's like, just relax. You don't have to do anything. You're letting it happen. You're letting it unfold. People who play music know this. Who are artists know this. We had a meeting with a friend of ours who's a professional athlete the other day because we wanted to do a project together. Jamila as an artist and him as an athlete and me as somebody who thinks he knows stuff. But so we had this meeting and we were talking and we entered some other time stream where 4 hours went by and literally we finished and I felt so elevated from just talking and meeting and eating and drinking and talking and then we went back to work on Friday and had to go over to the office and I was like, it's 4 o'clock? How did that happen? But so some force was driving that whole meeting, was driving our conversation, was driving the three of us. And I said to Jamila, I was like, wow. And she goes, wow. She goes, that was incredible. And where did the time go? And what popped into my head was, wherever 2 or more are gathered in my name, I shall be there. I think that's a quote, Jesus quote. But that's you can open that up to any spiritual flow. But you know that's the thing is that when you're in the flow, that's the dharma. Because when you're in alignment with your soul, the things that are happening, you don't really have to do that much except what's right in front of you, what's presented itself to you, and then you develop such a relationship with that force that your intuition tells you where to move, how to move. It's kind of like, I would say, somebody who's a master at something. They know to make that little adjustment there. Have you ever seen somebody who's like a sound mixer? I think it's just like 48, 50 channels in front of them, and they listen and they're doing a take, and all of a sudden you go, okay, this thing needs to go up 2 notches, because they just know in their cells that that's the way it is. That's a dharmic flow.
In the zone.
Yeah, people get they get, and I was in this category myself. You associate these words karma and dharma. Karma's bad, and it's what you did because you're a bad sinner, which is left over from the religious era. Well, you're a bad person and you sinned, and that's why you're in karma. You have bad karma. That's why all these bad things are happening to you. But no, if you're in dharma, you're an angel. You got the halo over your head, and you're a spiritual God person. But that's not true. Remember, karma and dharma is the same thing. It's all happening. And if you did something bad and you're having a tough experience, then well, it's because of something that went wrong along the way, and that's fine too. It's all life and it's all good. But if things are flowing and you're in the zone and that's you're where you need to be and you're living the purpose of your life and you just know it in every cell, well, that's okay too, And some days you're on one side, some days you're on the other side. But the master just knows how to create the pattern where he or she is on the right side, in the right flow all the time.
On the beam.
Yes, I love telling the story. Those who have hung around me will know that I've told the story several times, but this impacted me very much. When I was wandering around in the early years trying to find, the art of my life, I found this book called The Reflections on the Art of Living. It's a collection of Joseph Campbell's teachings. And in there he talks about how he was traveling through India, and he was in the lobby of this hotel, and he ran into a bunch of friends. And of course, he grew up in the 20s, so there's all that kind of language, like, how do you do, Joe? Yes, and how do you do? Oh, what are you doing here? Oh, we're here to see Swami Satchidananda. Would you like an audience with him? Sure, we can arrange that. And so Joseph Campbell's comment to that was that, see, this is what happens when you're on the beam. So in other words, he was living his destiny. He was supposed to meet this master, but because he was on, the train was on the tracks, and he was, driving the train properly. He was in the right place at the right time, and then his friend said, here, meet the master. And then Joseph Campbell describes his experience with meeting Swami Satchidananda. First thing he says, he goes, it was very confrontational. He said, I walked into the room, and it was a bare room with just 2 seats, and the master was in one seat, and the other seat was for me to sit in front of him. So that was beautiful too. I mean, because what a picture, right? Confrontational between you and the master, and usually, and it's rare in the old days that you would get a meeting with a master of that magnitude. It's rare. Usually, you have to study with a master for a very long time, or be somehow in a circle where you can get it. And so that's why he said, "Oh, this is what happens when you're on the beam." He was understating it, but it was very rare to get an audience with somebody of that caliber. And it's like, now, if you want to go see the Dalai Lama, good luck. You have to be, at a certain frequency before you'll get in there and that sort of thing. So he gets to meet the master, and his next thing he said was, I was very fortunate to have asked Swami Satchidananda the same question that he asked his master. Now, back to this idea that it's very rare to meet these masters, which is why people throw it away in the West. They meet these masters and they don't know what they're doing, and myself included. It's just the way you raised, as Chris Rock would say. But Yogi Bhajan talks about, like, when he was in the ashram with his master, there's all these people, this great tantric master, and he had an audience with him, I believe. He said, like, once every 12 years, unless the master called you in. So he would give you something to do. You just shut the fuck up and do it, or get kicked out. Not like now, you just pay $11, you go to a class in Minnesota, because they did $11 here. But it's rare to get this kind of audience with a master. So that's another thing that gives this story such, I guess, what do you call it, efficacy. So Joseph Campbell's sitting with Swami Satchidananda, and he's fortunate to ask the master the same question he asked his master. Now, that's profound, because Joseph Campbell's, he's an academic, intellectual, he's university professor, he writes books. He's not some guy who practices. He even said himself he's not a big practitioner, never did any meditation, stuff like that. So he goes in and he's asking this Swami, this master who's in a lineage, the same question that master asked his master. That's a very subtle thing that gets lost in this story, but I wanted to point it out. So, and the question was, he asked Swami Satchidananda, he goes, if everything is Brahman, he used the word Brahman, which is God, right? So it's one Hindu version of God. If everything is Brahman, how do we say no to anything? And the Swami Satchidananda smiled, because that was his question, his master. And he nodded his head and he says, for you and me, we say yes. And then afterwards he's talking to his friends, and his friends go, well, Joe, what did you say to the master? He said, why? He goes, your friend. Swami Satchidananda said to the friends, your friend is very close to enlightenment. And that always struck me. So what he said was that if everything is God, how do we say no to anything? How do you say no to the demon? I think the demon I have in the dark force that's in me. How do you say no to the thing that happened that was bad, that you think is bad? There's a key there that unlocks tremendous amounts of energy, freedom, and peace. And that's when you can see the good, the God, whatever, in everything. And that's the work of a lifetime. It's the work of a lifetime.
Yeah. Good. That's good. That was helpful.
All right, so no, that's it, and so that concludes the first episode. I call all these different things. This is the kitchen table. We have conversations. I've got money camp. I just got a whole TV station I want to do here. It's
We're
fun.
doing it.
We're having fun.
It's
We're
here.
doing it. So thank you for joining. You can find information about where to follow us, where to join us. Please subscribe and like and follow. It helps us keep this going on. So if you enjoy it, pass it on to your friends. Like and subscribe. And if we're
and if you have questions,
yeah,
let us
questions.
know. Maybe we'll
Email her if you have questions. Email her, and if you have questions, she's got lots of time. And
yeah.
All right, so also if you if we're competent enough, there'll be some interesting things in the show notes that may or may not help you. So I can't promise.
No,
you.
that'll help you for sure.
All right, so now take care, and we'll see you next time.
All right, bye. Thank you.